somebody that can play music around here, can do the piano, strum the guitar, something to relieve me of this agonizing torment. And one of his slaves said, or servant, there's a cunning player, a mighty man, valiant man, a man of war, a prudent in manners, and a comely person. The Lord is with him. And David came to Saul, stood before him, and he loved him greatly, and he became his armor bearer. Now here's a guy that's going to be king, coming into Saul, who has been basically disposed from being king, and David's there to serve him. Saul sent to Jesse, saying, let David, I pray you, stand before me, for he has found favor in my sight. And it came to pass, when the evil spirit from God was upon Saul, that David took an harp and played with his hand. So Saul refreshed and was well, and the evil spirit departed from him. So now David proves himself. So they went out to war. David went back to his father. Now his father's, wanting him to go and check out his brothers or Jesse's sons. And while David was there, there was a champion that went out before the camp of the Philistines. Yes, this is the guy named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. Big dude. A cubit is from like the tip of a king's finger to the crook of the elbow, which is, it can be like 18 inches or so, depending upon the king. So we're talking about something at 6 times 18, which would be a lot. Now David was the son of Ephrathite, the Bethlehem of Judah, Bethlehem, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. The man was sent among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him, and came to the trench as the host going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. And he talked with him and said, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words, and David heard it. And the men of Israel said, have you seen this man that has come up surely to defy Israel? Is he come up? And it shall be that the man who kills him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. Well, that sounds pretty good. And all you have to do is take out a giant. So David listens to it. His brother, gives him a hard time, saying, hey, what are you doing? And David says, hey, look, I'm just here, and I wasn't doing anything, minding my own business, and this happened. So David got his sling, got his 5 smooth stones, and Goliath is like, he can't even believe that somebody came out like this to talk to him. And David was a youth. He was ruddy and of fair countenance. Now, this is basically, hey, he was a pretty boy. What's a pretty boy going to do with a giant that has been tried and tested in war? And the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog that you come to me with staves, with stones? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, come to me, and I'll give you your flesh unto the fowls of the air and the beasts of the field. Then David said to the Philistine, you may come with the sword and with the spear and with the shield, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of the hosts, and the God of armies of Israel, whom you has defiled. And we know the rest of the story. He took out Goliath, chopped his head off. He got all the riches and glory. He got Saul's daughter for his wife. He got riches. He was being praised in front of the people. With people, they're saying that Saul's slain his thousands, David his 100,000, tens of thousands, and Saul became pretty jealous. He became so jealous that he chased David around for 13 years. David was 40 years old, or about 40 years old, when he actually took over the kingdom. Maybe 30. Might have been 30 years old. Anyway, he was on the run from Saul all this time. And here's the other thing. Daniel had a chance twice to take out Saul. But he said both times that he would not touch the Lord's anointed. Smart man. So David becomes king. And he's widening his borders. He, as a king, probably between him and even Solomon, ruled over the largest amount of land at that time. But David decided he wasn't going to go out to battle one time. He meets this woman. He's on his roof. He should have been out in battle, but he's on his roof. He sees this woman naked in a tub, and he's got to have her. So he goes, brings the woman back. He's the king. He can do anything he wants. And he has sex with Bathsheba, and she gets pregnant. Of course, the rest of the story is that her husband was fighting. He brings her husband back, says, well, maybe he will, I'll get him drunk. He'll go into his wife, and he won't know any better. Well, Uriah never made it back to his wife. He says, here's my, fellow man, fellow soldiers fighting, and I should come and, get me some? And he said no. So what happened was David sent Uriah back to the battle with a note, a sealed document given to Joab and saying, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. Joab did it, and Uriah died. I guess the irony here is that Uriah took his own death orders to Joab to carry out. So, after all this, and David's just being David, he's hanging out. Bathsheba has a time of mourning, comes to be his wife. And now Nathan, a prophet, is going to come to David. He tells him about this two men. One man had all the flocks in the world they could ever want, and one man had just one little lamb. Instead of the big guy, instead of the prosperous, the wealthy guy taking from all his sheep, he takes the lamb from the other guy. And David said, he should be killed. He should die. And Nathan said, guess what, pal? You're the man. David was contrite. He apologized. He paid some consequences for it. But he was not removed as king. There was a second time that it happened. And this is where he numbered the people. Now, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. It wasn't by David that these people, became prosperous, they multiplied. It was the Lord, but he decided that he was going to go and number these people, take a census to find out how many people he was actually ruling over. And the Lord wasn't happy with it. Even Joab said, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. And David said, no, yeah, I'm going to anyway. And Joab said, look, you got a lot of people. Why do you need to do more? But he went out. Joab did as David was pressing him to. But God was displeased with the thing, and he smote Israel. And David said unto God, I've sinned greatly because I have done this thing. But now I beseech you, do away the iniquity of your servant, for I have done very foolishly. And God said unto Gad, I am in a strait. And David said unto Gad, I am in a great strait, and this is another prophet. Let me fall now into the hands of the Lord, for very great are his mercies, but let me not fall into the hand of man. David lifted up his eyes and saw the angel of the Lord stand between the earth and the heaven, having drawn a sword in his hand. David and the elders who were clothed in sackcloth fell on their faces. And David said unto God, Is it not I that commanded the people to be numbered? Even I it is that have sinned and done evil indeed. But as for these sheep, what have they done? Let my hand, I pray you, Lord, be on me and on my father's house, but not on my people, on your people, that they should be plagued. Then the angel of the Lord commanded the prophet Gad to say to David, that David should go up and set an altar unto the Lord in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. So what's the difference between David and Saul? David took responsibility when he's called out and repented. Saul continued to blame everyone else for his problems and for his disobedience. And about David, even though he was wrong and he had moral failings, he was still a man after God's own heart. A Psalm of David 51 is when this happened with Bathsheba and he repented. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your loving kindness, according unto the multitude of your tender mercies. Blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from mine iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgressions, my sin ever before me. Against thee and thee only have I sinned, and done this evil in your sight, that you might be justified when you speak. Be clear when you judge. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from your presence. Take not your Holy Spirit from me. Restore unto me the joy of your salvation upon me. With thy free spirit deliver me from blood guiltlessness, O God, thou God of my salvation, and my tongue shall sing aloud of your righteousness. For you desired not sacrifice, else I would have given it, but you delight not in burnt offerings. The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. O God, you will not despise. As I said, both came short. One blamed others, Saul, and the other blamed himself. This is the question we must ask ourselves as Christians. Are we going to be self-righteous or God-righteous? I like this in Luke 18, 9 through 14, and I'm winding down here. He spake the parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. And he said, 2 men went into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank you, I'm not as other men, are extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even this publican. I fast twice in a week. I give tithes of all I possess. And the publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God, be merciful unto me, a sinner. And this is what Jesus said. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified, rather than the other. For everyone that exalts himself shall be abased, and he that humbles himself shall be exalted. And I think in this climate, right now, as we're looking into an election, we have to really balance our decisions based upon what do we want within our country? What do we want to see the world as?